College football is back, and it truly is the best as Georgia Tech stuns Florida State in Ireland 24-21 on a last-second field goal from the Yellow Jackets. It was wild. It got dicey, but the more physical team in Georgia Tech pulled off the upset today, and I sent a message to the rest of the ACC. Perfect way to kick off the season. If you want more college football coverage, of course, the NFL. We cover both here on 4Verts. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And listen, this was fun, man. This was fun, and I got a few takeaways. I kind of like Georgia Tech coming into this game. If you watched them last year, that offense was pretty dynamic. Haynes King is a good dual-threat quarterback. His biggest issue last year is he just threw too many interceptions. But when he takes care of the ball, he's a physical runner. They can find chunk gains on the ground. He can do just enough as a passer. And you kind of saw that on full display today. And I think what stood out most to me, and we'll get to DJ Uiagalelei here in a minute as I pull up the box score on my phone, is Georgia Tech just pushed Florida State around. And I thought the Yellow Jackets could play in this game because I like their offense. They run a lot of counters and misdirection, and they're creative with how they, get their running backs in space. I did not necessarily think they would just push the Seminoles around it, and you saw that. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Georgia Tech today ran the ball 36 times for 190 yards, 5.3 a carry, rushed it in for 3 touchdowns. Jamal Haynes, 11 carries, 75 yards, 2 scores. That's almost 7 yards a pop. Haynes King, only 3.6 per carry, but had some big ones, 15 for 54. Chad Alexander, 7 for 41. So you saw guys get involved, and the offensive line just set the tone in this game. And King was efficient throwing the football, 11 of 16, 146 yards. This is how Georgia Tech is going to want to play. You saw after the game, their head coach, who's doing a hell of a job, said, "We want to run the ball. Run the ball." Said he was really proud of how the offensive line controlled things. And the reason I kind of like Georgia Tech, I love the plus 10.5. I mean, I should have dropped the hammer on that. But I thought the money line was decent value because, A, you're traveling across the pond. You're in Ireland. It can be weird. And B, Florida State lost a ton of talent off that team that went undefeated in the regular season last year. New quarterback, tons of new players in the trenches, a couple of wide receivers gone, their top running back gone. I mean, they had like 12 guys drafted. I get Florida State is, they're not a blue blood, but they're kind of a tier 2 blue blood. You would expect them to reload, and they've got some talent. They're not as good, and they're not as deep, and they're certainly not as physical as they were last year. Now, the good news for them is in a 12-team playoff system, they can try to regroup. The ACC is not super top-heavy, but you got to win probably 10-2 to make the playoff at this point. So they're going to have to win 10 of their final 11. DJ Uiagalelei is who we thought he was, and that is just an average college quarterback. He's not that dynamic. He doesn't throw a good deep ball. He's sort of mobile, but I've never felt like he was as fast as he was that first year we saw him when he replaced Trevor Lawrence in a couple of games when T-Law had COVID. And at the time, I remember thinking this guy's going to be special. Like, he could win a national title at Clemson, and he was brutal that next year for the Tigers. Transferred to Oregon State a couple of years later. Was decent last year, but like a sub 60% guy. And today, 19 of 27, a $193, it's fine, but there's no touchdowns. He ran it 6 times for 7 yards. Florida State as a whole averaged 3.2 yards per carry, 98 yards on 31 touches, which, by the way, kudos to Georgia Tech. They made some coaching changes. They were dead last in the ACC last year in run defense, held Florida State to under 100 yards. I thought the better team won today. Really. I know the title of this is Upset Alert, and based on the point spread and the ranking and all that, but college football is weird sometimes. These early season games, you don't really know who's good and who isn't. We think we know who's good. We think we know who's supposed to be a contender this year. That Florida State team feels like an 8-4 team. And I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia Tech won 8 or 9 games. In the ACC this year, it's the reason why I picked Miami to win the conference. I don't love Mario Cristobal as a head coach, but they have the most upside talent. They have the best quarterback in the conference in Cam Ward. They have a really good receiver in Xavier Restrepo. They got Damian Martinez, one of the best running backs in the country, also from Oregon State, to come over as well. If Cristobal does a decent job, that Miami's going to win 10 games. So I had Florida State in my playoff as well, reluctantly. Today, they don't look like a playoff team. A lot of time to go, a lot of ball game left, a lot of season left, but they're going to have to regroup, and they're going to have to regroup quickly because, even in a weak ACC, they could lose 3 or 4 games. So good for Georgia Tech. I think Haynes King is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country. Got buried at Texas A&M, did some good things last year, and if he takes care of the football this year, they're going to be in a lot of games because they're physical and they can run the football, and that still plays in 2024. All right, college football, you're back. A couple smaller games later today. SMU plays tonight. Be curious to see what they do, but really gets going next week. We'll have some coverage, so lock us in here on Verts. Hit that subscribe button. My name is Harrison Graham. We'll see you soon. Peace.